What if I told you that hypnosis isn't something that happens to you? It's something your brain already knows how to do. And that's exactly why hypnosis is so misunderstood. Because when people hear the word hypnosis, they picture somebody being controlled or somebody being put under, or maybe made to do something strange on stage. Other people think it's just relaxation, a calm voice, some background music, a few positive suggestions. But neither of those explanations really gets to the truth, because if hypnosis was only relaxation, it wouldn't really explain why people use it for anxiety, confidence, habits, sleep, emotional patterns and changes. And if hypnosis was mind control, it wouldn't be something that we could use safely, ethically and therapeutically. So what is hypnosis actually doing? And why does it work when everything else hasn't? I'm Andrew Major, clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist. And in this video, I want to show you the truth about hypnosis, what it actually does in the brain, why conscious effort isn't always enough, and how hypnosis can help your mind and body practice a different response. Now, most of the time when we try to change something, we try to do that consciously. We think about it, we analyze it, and we try to understand why it happens. We try to make a better choice next time, and sometimes that's enough. But sometimes, even when you understand the problem, the old patterns still show up. The same reaction, the same habit, the same hesitation, the same automatic response. Now, you may know how you want to feel, you may know how you want to behave, and you may understand where that pattern comes from. But the mind and body still seem to move before conscious thought has caught up. And that tells us something very important. Some patterns are not only sitting at the level of conscious thought, they're learned responses, they're automatic programs the brain and the nervous system have practiced over time. So hypnosis is not there to argue with every thought, and it's not there just to relax you for a few minutes. It actually creates the right conditions for your brain to rehearse something different, using attention, imagination, emotion, expectation and repetition. That's the level where many automatic responses are learned, and that's the level that hypnosis is designed to work with. So let's start with the subconscious, because that's where a lot of the confusion begins. The subconscious isn't a magical hidden mind, it's not a separate person inside of you, and it isn't something mysterious that takes over when you close your eyes. A better way to understand this is that your subconscious is that part of your brain and nervous system that's learned through repetition what to do automatically. So it runs patterns, emotional patterns, behavioral patterns, habit patterns, and protective patterns. So it helps you do familiar things without having to consciously think about them every time. So that's incredibly useful because you don't want to have to consciously relearn how to walk, drive, speak or respond every day, every morning when you wake up. So the same system can also learn patterns that become less useful too. So if you've learned to feel anxious in certain situations, tense before speaking, self-critical before trying something new, or alert to danger even when a part of you knows it's safe, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It means your brain is learning a pattern, and the brain is very good at repeating what it's learned. This explains why logic alone doesn't often change how you feel. You can consciously know something's safe and still feel uneasy in your body. You can tell yourself to relax and still feel your mind racing. You can know that you want to feel confident and still feel that hesitation rising automatically, because conscious logic and subconscious patterning are not always speaking the same language. And that's where automatic reactions become easier to understand, because not every thought, feeling or response is a deliberate conscious conclusion. Some are predictions, some are protective responses, and some are old patterns arriving automatically. So a thought like, I can't handle this, might not be a fact. It might be your brain predicting danger based on what it's learned before. And a thought like, something will go wrong, might not be intuition. It might be an old rehearsal playing out again. And that's why thoughts are not always what they seem. They might feel like the truth in that moment, but often they're a surface expression of a deeper pattern. So another way to understand the subconscious is a prediction system. It's constantly asking, what usually happens here? What should I be expecting? How should I respond to this? What have we rehearsed before? So if the brain's learned to expect threat, pressure, rejection, embarrassment, or failure in a certain situation, it may respond before your conscious mind has had time to think it through. So that's why a reaction can happen so fast. The body prepares, the emotion rises, and then the thought appears. And then only does the conscious mind try to make sense of what just happened. So the subconscious isn't a mystical force, it's that part of the brain and nervous system that's learned what to do automatically. So it's your mind's pattern system. And that explains why hypnosis can be so useful. Because your brain doesn't just respond to what's real, it responds to what's repeated. So if the mind's repeatedly rehearsing threat, the body starts preparing for threats. If the mind repeatedly rehearses failure, the brain becomes more alert to evidence of that failure. But if the mind repeatedly rehearses calm, confidence, steadiness, or a different way of responding, the brain begins to build a different template. These aren't just thoughts, they're templates, and the more consistently you revisit them, the more dominant they become. That's why hypnosis isn't about battling the mind. It is about working with that part of your brain that learns through repetition, imagery, emotion, and expectation. So what actually changes when someone enters hypnosis? Well, your brain produces electrical activity at different frequencies depending on what you're doing. So when you're alert, thinking, analysing, planning, problem solving, or you're mentally busy, your brain is often at a faster state associated with beta waves. So beta is really useful. You need beta to think, to make decisions, work, plan, organise, and really function in the world. But beta is also where many people try to change patterns using conscious effort alone. So they think harder, they analyse more, they push themselves or argue with their thoughts. They try to reason their way out of something that was not created by reason alone. And that's where people often get stuck, because many automatic patterns are not just thoughts, they're learned responses involving your attention, your body, your memory, and your nervous system. So as you relax, your brain begins to move into slower rhythms, often associated with alpha and sometimes theta. So alpha is that calmer, more focused state where the noise begins to quieten. You're still awake, but less caught up in analysis. Theta is often linked with imagination, memory processing, emotional learning, and a deeper internal focus. It's a state where many people pass through just before falling asleep, just after waking, or when they're absorbed internally. And you've probably experienced something like this already. Maybe you've been listening to a sleep track, a meditation, or a long relaxation video, and suddenly time just seemed to blur. Your thoughts softened. You were still aware, but you weren't trying so hard to listen. The outside world faded back a bit, and your inner experience became clearer. So that's the beginning of trance. Not sleep, not unconsciousness, a shift in attention. And in hypnosis, we use that shift deliberately. And that's why hypnosis can feel so relaxing. But it's not only just relaxation. That slower, more receptive brain state helps the mind become more open to imagery, suggestion, and emotional rehearsal. And that's where hypnosis starts to become really interesting. Because now, you're not just telling yourself to change, you're giving your brain an experience of that change. So how do suggestions actually work? Now clinically, this is where I see one of the biggest misunderstandings. People think that suggestion is an instruction. It isn't. A suggestion is an invitation. And that's where the subconscious only accepts invitations that feel believable, useful, relevant, and aligned with that person. So that's why hypnosis can't make you do something against your will. So if a suggestion clashes with your values, your morals, or your sense of safety, it does not go deeper. it gets rejected, and your conscious mind comes straight back online. So during trance, the mental filter between conscious thought and subconscious learning begins to soften. In hypnotherapy, we sometimes call this a conscious critical faculty. It doesn't disappear, and you don't lose your values, and you don't lose control. But that part of your mind that normally questions, argues, analyzes, interprets or rejects new ideas becomes less dominant for a while. And that creates an opportunity. A useful suggestion can be considered more openly. A calming image can feel more real. A response can be rehearsed before real life asks for it. So this also explains why positive thinking or affirmations alone can sometimes fall flat. So if you say, "I am confident," while your body is tense and your mind is analysing, the conscious mind might immediately reply, "No, I'm not." The suggestion stays at that surface level. It becomes an argument. But in hypnosis, when the body is calmer, the imagination is engaged, and the mind is more receptive, the suggestion can be experienced rather than just repeated. And that's so important because the brain learns more deeply from experience than from instruction. So if in hypnosis you imagine yourself responding more calmly, feel your body settle, hear the tone of your voice change, notice yourself handling a situation differently, and repeat that experience over time, the brain begins to treat that as a rehearsal, and the brain gets better at what it rehearses. That's why hypnosis works best with suggestions that are not random. So they need to be clear, believable, emotionally meaningful, and connected to change that person actually wants. So in other words, effective hypnosis isn't just positive words over relaxing music. It's targeted mental rehearsal in a receptive state. So let's clear up 3 of the biggest myths about hypnosis. The first one, hypnosis means losing control. Now this is the one that stops many people from even trying hypnosis. And I understand why, because stage hypnosis and films often make hypnosis look like control, performance, or manipulation. But clinically, hypnosis isn't about taking control. It's about helping you access more control over the patterns that have been running automatically. So you remain aware, you can hear what is being said, you can accept, reject, or ignore suggestions, and if anything else doesn't feel right, your conscious mind comes straight back online. So hypnosis isn't loss of control, it's focused attention. The second myth is that you have to go into deep hypnosis for it to work. You don't, because people vary in how they experience hypnosis. Some people feel very deeply absorbed in it, some people are calm and aware throughout, some people drift in and out, and some people remember everything and some people remember very little. But it doesn't mean that one person did it right and another person failed, because hypnosis isn't a test. Your brain already moves through trance-like states naturally anyway. The skill is learning to use that state deliberately. So you don't need to feel deeply under for hypnosis to be useful, because even a light trance where you're just relaxed, focused, and still aware can be enough for therapeutic change to begin. So myth number 3 is that hypnosis is just relaxation. So relaxation is part of hypnosis, but it's not the whole story, because if hypnosis were only relaxation, then relaxing music would do the same thing. But hypnosis combines relaxation with focused attention, imagery, expectation, repetition, and suggestion. So it's giving your brain a structured experience of a different response. And that structure really matters because anxiety, self-doubt, habits, emotional reactions are not just ideas floating around in your mind, they're patterns the brain and body has practiced. So hypnosis isn't magic, it's not mind control, and it's not just lying back and relaxing. It's really a way of helping your brain to practice that different pattern. So this is why hypnosis isn't a quick fix that happens to you. It works best when you participate in the process. And there are things that make a real difference: openness, expectation, and of course repetition. Openness doesn't mean that you're making yourself believe every word. It really means allowing yourself to engage in the process instead of constantly checking whether it's working. Expectation matters because the brain responds differently when it believes that change is possible. So it doesn't mean that you're pretending, it just means that you're giving your mind permission to consider a new outcome. And repetition really matters because the brain learns through repeated experience. So your brain doesn't change just because it heard something once, it changes because it begins to recognize a pattern as familiar, safe, and available. So that's why listening once can feel calming, but listening repeatedly can begin to train the pattern. And that's where action matters too. So hypnosis gives your brain the rehearsal. Action gives your brain the evidence. So if you rehearse calm in hypnosis, then you practice responding to one stressful moment a little bit differently. If you rehearse confidence and take one small confidence step in real life, if you rehearse a steadier version of yourself and look for one moment in that day where you can act from that version, you begin to give your brain that evidence. Because what you rehearse in your mind, you reinforce in your life. And that's also why hypnosis can be especially useful before sleeping. So you don't need to analyze every word. You're giving your mind useful emotional material before the natural overnight processing of memory, emotional processing, and recovery. So the question shouldn't be, does hypnosis work? A better question is, what am I bringing to it, and what pattern am I giving my brain to rehearse? Because when you combine openness, expectation, repetition, and real-life action, hypnosis becomes far more than just relaxation. It becomes a way of training your brain. So let's look at the whole picture. The real truth is that hypnosis isn't something that happens to you, it's something your brain already knows how to do. The question is whether you're using that state accidentally or deliberately. Because, for example, anxiety, worry, self-doubt are also forms of rehearsal. So if you keep imagining what could go wrong, your body responds. If you keep repeating the same internal story, your brain strengthens it. If your mind keeps scanning for a threat, your nervous system stays prepared. And that's why anxiety isn't just a thinking problem, it's a pattern problem. You can know that there's nothing to worry about and still feel that fear in your body. You can know that you're safe and still feel your nervous system firing. You know what to do and still feel held back. Hypnosis helps because it uses the same systems in a different direction. So instead of rehearsing danger, it helps your brain rehearse safety. Instead of strengthening, I can cope, it helps you practice, I can handle this. Instead of leaving the nervous system stuck in old patterns of response, it gives your mind and body a different experience, calm, control, and steadiness. So guided hypnosis can be a really powerful way to practice calmer patterns because they give your brain repeated exposure to focused attention, positive suggestion, imagery, and rehearsal. And in my one-to-one client sessions, we work with the same principles in a more personal and collaborative way. We combine positive solution-focused conversations with hypnosis. So the same principle applies whether you're listening here or working with me one-to-one. The brain changes through repeated experience. So the truth about hypnosis is this: it doesn't control your mind, and it doesn't magically change everything in one moment. Hypnosis creates the conditions for your brain to rehearse a different pattern at a level where automatic responses are learned. And with repetition, that pattern can begin to feel more familiar, more natural, and more available in real life. That's how hypnosis helps you work with your subconscious mind, not by forcing change, but by helping your brain learn a different response. And if you'd like to experience hypnosis for yourself, I've created this playlist here. Take a look, find a session that works for you, get comfortable, and notice how your mind and body respond to that calmer, more focused state. So until next time, be kind to yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.